To my brother Eli, if you ever return to the ranch, don't look for what I left behind. It's not the broken fences or blood in the dust you'll find. It's the silence. And in that silence, everything changes. Some people say you can feel death before it touches you. They're right. But what they don't tell you is how quiet it is, how it waits, just outside the ordinary, until one false step rips it wide open. I used to believe I understood the land, its moods, its seasons, its laws. But that day proved me wrong. A lion doesn't need permission to teach you that you're not the one in control. The morning had come with that soft golden glow only Texas skies can carry. A wide blue stretched above a sleepy horizon, brush rustling gently, distant cattle lowing. I saddled Buck, my old sorrel, just past 6 a.m., the leather creaking under my hands, the metal of the bit clinking softly. I'd planned a routine check along the west fence. We'd had some storm damage last week, and a few calves had started wandering off into the scrub. The land out there is dry and raw, dotted with mesquite, cholla cactus, and clusters of prickly pear, always alive with heat and hush. There was no reason to suspect anything unusual, except maybe the birds. I remember now how they were absent. The silence felt wrong. Buck hesitated near the dry arroyo, as if catching something I couldn't. His ears twitched, nostrils flared. I dismounted when I saw the fence torn low near mile marker 9. One of the new steers had clearly tried to push through. I crouched to examine the tracks in the dust. That's when I noticed it. Mixed with the sharp edges of cloven hooves were pads, 4 of them, wide and heavy. The print wasn't a bobcat. It was too large. I froze, squinting into the thicket where the brush grew thickest. There was no wind, just that stillness again. Buck let out a sharp, nervous snort behind me, and when I turned, his muscles were tensed like bowstrings. He stared into the undergrowth. I held my breath. There was a scent on the air, musky, metallic, wrong. I had my Winchester in the saddle scabbard, but my hands were still on my knees, too slow. The back of my neck tingled like a wire pulled tight. Something moved, just a flicker, tawny and low to the ground. I stood up, heart hammering in my chest. Then I heard it. A low growl, like gravel stirred under weight. My eyes locked with a pair of golden orbs, just beyond the mesquite. It didn't make sense. Not here. Not in Texas. But it was a lion. A full-grown male. I could see the mane, ragged and dark, a halo of fury around a face made for killing. I reached for my rifle. Too late. The animal burst from the brush like a nightmare torn open. I remember the way the earth seemed to shift under its charge. The sheer mass of it. Buck reared, eyes wild, then bolted, leaving me alone. I didn't even get the rifle out before the lion was on me. Its roar ripped through the air, then claws, impossibly fast, dug into my shoulder and chest, throwing me hard onto my back. I don't remember the fall, only the impact. My head cracked against a rock, my ears rang, blood already blurring my vision. I felt the weight of it pin me down, hot breath on my face, its mouth wide and wet and full of teeth. I threw up an arm and it bit, a crushing snap that felt like fire in my bones. I screamed. The lion didn't care. It was methodical, terrifyingly quiet except for its panting. Somehow I reached for my belt knife, but my hand wouldn't work right. Blood made everything slick. The lion bit down on my thigh, jerking me toward the brush. That's when something broke. In me, the panic gave way to something else, rage. I stabbed blindly over and over until it let go, more out of surprise than pain. We locked eyes again, and I swear for a moment it was deciding. Then it backed away, slow, not afraid, just finished. I was shaking, soaked in my own blood, barely able to breathe. The lion vanished into the brush as if it had never been there. I dragged myself to the horse trail, crawling on elbows, screaming for Buck, for anyone. I don't remember anything after that except the taste of dirt and the feel of my own heart trying to run. The first thing I remember is the weight. It didn't feel like an animal. It felt like a landslide. I hit the ground before I even understood what was happening. My breath left my lungs in one hard burst, and then it was just claws and dust and noise. The lion's front paws landed on my chest, and I heard ribs crack, literally heard them like wood snapping under pressure. My face was a blur of fur and fangs. I couldn't think, I couldn't scream, I just flailed. One claw slashed across my scalp, hot and fast. Blood poured into my eyes. It was like being buried in fire. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see. I thought, so this is it, this is how it ends. Its roar was more like a deep pulsing engine than anything you'd expect from a living creature. I could feel it inside my bones, shaking the ground. It wasn't just noise, it was dominance, a primal command. It pinned me down with one paw, while its teeth went for my arm. The pain was so sudden, so complete, I thought my body would shut off. My left hand disappeared inside its jaws. I heard the bones break. A scream tore out of me, but it didn't stop. My free hand fumbled for the knife at my belt, but I couldn't get the angle. The lion dragged me backwards like a rag doll, its teeth still locked around my wrist. I saw the sky spin. I felt my boot catch on a rock. Then we were in the brush. Every second was chaos. I didn't know where it would bite next. I kept expecting it to go for my throat, to finish it. But it didn't. It seemed to toy with me. It let go of my arm and slammed its head into my ribs. The wind left me again. Then it bit my thigh, deep. I felt the pressure more than the pain, like someone forcing a blade into meat. I kicked at it, screaming, but it was like kicking a truck. Its eyes stayed locked on mine the entire time, calm, cold, ancient. There was no hate there, no fear, just certainty. It was doing what it was made to do, and I was just prey. I stabbed it once, twice. I don't know how many times. The blade sank into muscle near its neck. It snarled, finally made a sound of pain, and whipped its head around, catching my hip in its jaws. I felt the skin tear, warm and wet. Then suddenly, it just let go. It stepped back, breathing hard, blood on its face. Some mine, some its own. I didn't move, couldn't. My whole body was on fire. It watched me. Then it turned, slow, and walked back into the trees. No panic, no rush. Like it had decided I wasn't worth the kill. I laid there for what felt like hours. My ears rang. Blood pooled around me. Flies started to gather. I remember hearing Boone barking in the distance, frantic, desperate. But I couldn't answer. My voice was gone. I tried to sit up and blacked out. When I woke again, the light was different. My arm was twisted beneath me, completely numb. My leg was unrecognizable, meat and bone and denim shredded. I thought about dying, not with fear, just curiosity. Is this how it ends? Here, in the dirt, under a sky full of vultures? But Boone came back. My dog, my mutt, with one ear and a heart bigger than Texas. I don't know how he found me, but he did. He nudged my face, whimpered, then took off barking again, running back toward the trail. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of a truck engine. Caleb's voice, breaking as he called my name, hands lifting me, pain spiking so bright it blinded me. Someone wrapped my arm in a flannel shirt. Someone else pressed on my thigh to stop the bleeding. I tried to tell them not to move me. They did anyway. The world went black. When I came to, we were racing down a dirt road. The truck smelled like oil and sweat and blood. Caleb sat in the back with me, holding my broken arm like it was glass. I saw tears on his cheeks. I wanted to tell him I was okay, but my mouth wouldn't work. Every bump felt like a gunshot through my body. The pain was beyond words, beyond noise. I remember grabbing his shirt, gripping it tight and whispering, "Don't let me die." He didn't answer. He just held on tighter. At the hospital, chaos took over. They cut away my clothes. The light was so bright it made me nauseous. One nurse threw up when she saw the wounds. Another just stood still, whispering, "Oh my God." They pumped something into my IV and the world melted. I heard words, septic, multiple fractures, arterial damage. I floated in and out. I saw my sister's face. I heard Boone barking outside. I heard a nurse say, "What kind of animal did this?" And the doctor replied, "A lion. It had to be." That's when I knew it was real. I woke up a day later, full of tubes and metal. My left arm was in a cast up to my shoulder. My leg was stapled and wrapped. They said I'd almost died from blood loss, that I'd needed 11 units to stay alive. They told me the sheriff was looking into exotic pet owners in the area, that no lions had been reported missing, that they didn't know where it came from or if it was still out there. All I could think about was its eyes. They haunted me. Not angry, not crazed, just deciding. A week passed before I could speak without vomiting. My throat was raw from the tube. When I finally asked for Boone, they brought him in. He crawled into my hospital bed and curled against my good side. That was the first time I cried. Not from pain, not from fear, but from knowing I hadn't died alone, that something came back for me. And in that moment I made myself a promise. I'd find out why it let me live. I needed to know, because the not knowing was worse than the scars. The first time I saw myself in the mirror, I looked away. Not because of the wounds, but because I didn't recognize the man staring back. My left eye was yellowed and bruised. A thick line of stitches curved along my scalp. My beard had grown out uneven, and the gauze on my chest rose and fell like a machine, not a breath. But what unsettled me most was the expression. Blank, not afraid, not angry, just emptied. It was like the lion had taken more than blood. It had scraped away a layer of who I was. That's what no one talks about, how the real wound isn't always visible. They moved me to a rehab center in San Antonio 3 weeks after the surgeries. I still couldn't walk without help. My leg throbbed constantly, like something inside was still tearing. The physical therapist was a kind woman named Lisette. She talked to me like I wasn't broken, but every step was a battlefield. She'd say, "Just 5 more," and I'd say, "That's 4 too many." We both smiled, but it hurt, not just my body, my pride. I used to break wild horses for a living. Now I couldn't get to the bathroom without a walker and someone watching. I started having dreams. Not nightmares exactly, more like memories warped by fear. In them, the lion wasn't always attacking me. Sometimes it stood in the field watching. Sometimes it spoke, not with words, just presence. Sometimes I was the lion, pacing in circles. I'd wake drenched in sweat, heart racing, eyes searching the shadows for something that had never left. Boone would lift his head and press it into my side, as if to say, "It's not here now, just sleep." But I couldn't. I didn't for weeks. The sheriff came by the rehab center once, brought photos. They'd found fresh prints out near where the attack happened, too big for a cougar. No sign of cattle kills, no sightings, no bodies. He said it like that made it better. But to me, it meant the lion wasn't gone. It was watching, waiting. I became obsessed with maps, satellite images, terrain patterns. I traced every creek bed, every blind spot in the fence. I even went online, deep forums where people swore big cats were loose in the US. Most of them were lunatics, but a few knew something. I found a photo, blurry, zoomed in, of what looked like the same lion taken 6 months before, hundreds of miles west. Same mane, same scar under the left eye. The user who posted it had disappeared from the forum, no explanation. The more I searched, the more stories I found. Dead goats, drag marks, silence where there should be sound. I wasn't the first to see this thing, and I wouldn't be the last. That realization didn't bring peace, it brought responsibility. I'd survived, maybe for a reason. When I was discharged, I didn't go straight home. I spent a week at a cabin my family used to own near Uvalde. Just me, Boone, and the trees. No TV, no distractions. I needed to sit with what happened, to remember every second without anyone interrupting. I replayed the attack, slow, deliberate. Not to torture myself, but to understand it. The moment it let me go, the moment it chose. That's where I got stuck. Because animals don't choose like we do. unless they're not just animals, unless they see something in us we can't. I started writing things down. Not for a book, not for anyone else, just pieces of thought. What I felt, what I feared, what I remembered. I wrote about the way its breath smelled, hot and rotten. I wrote about the second it looked away. That shift in its eyes. That's when I realized something. The lion wasn't confused, it wasn't startled. It saw something in me that made it stop. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it saw an old pain in my eyes. Or maybe it just decided it had made its point, that I wasn't who I thought I was. Back on the ranch, nothing felt the same. The brush looked darker, the wind sounded sharper. Every time a cow startled, I felt my heart pound. Boone stayed close, alert to every noise. I started seeing signs, bent grass, claw marks on a post, tracks too large to ignore. They weren't always fresh, but they were there. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? That the lion had come back? That I was being followed by a ghost with golden eyes? No, this was between me and the animal, a conversation that hadn't finished. One night I walked out alone to the edge of the property, moon high, rifle in hand. I wasn't hunting, I just needed to be seen. I stood at the fence where it all happened. I waited. Hours passed. Boone sat beside me, silent. And just before dawn, I heard it, not a roar. Just the faintest crunch of gravel. I didn't turn, I didn't run. I just whispered, I understand. Maybe it was the wind, maybe it was real, but something moved and then it was gone. I exhaled. For the first time in months, my shoulders dropped. I don't think it meant to kill me. I think it meant to break me, to show me who I really was under all that cowboy skin, and maybe it did. Because I'm not the same man who saddled up that morning. I move slower now. I speak less. I watch the land with different eyes. The lion gave me scars, but it also gave me a mirror. And what I saw, what I still see, is someone who came face to face with the wild and walked away breathing. That alone is enough. I used to think life worked in straight lines. You're born, you work, you raise your kids, and then you die on the land you built. That was the cowboy promise I grew up with. But after that day, I stopped believing in straight lines. What happened to me bent everything. My bones, my pride, my sense of safety. And yet in the wreckage, something else started growing. It wasn't strength. It wasn't even courage. It was clarity. When something that powerful looks you in the eyes and decides to spare you, you don't get to keep living the same way. You owe the world something different after that. I sold off most of the herd a year after the attack, gave up the long rides, the fences, the early mornings chasing strays across the valley. People thought I was quitting. I wasn't. I was changing. I started working with a wildlife rescue organization that handled exotic animal cases across Texas. We visited private properties, backroad compounds, even busted an illegal roadside zoo. I saw lions in cages smaller than my kitchen, sick, skinny things pacing in circles. And I realized the lion that attacked me had once lived like this. And just maybe that explained the fury. The first time I stood face to face with another lion, this one behind steel bars, sedated and trembling, my hands shook. I don't know if it sensed me. It never opened its eyes. But I stood there anyway. I owed it to the one who found me in the brush. I owed it to myself. There was no revenge in me, no fear either. Just a question I'd never stop asking. Why didn't it finish the job? The answer never came, but standing there, watching that animal breathe, I felt something release. Not forgiveness, not closure, just the weight of not needing either anymore. I started a foundation with Caleb. Second Wild, we called it. We rescue big cats from illegal ownership. Partner with sanctuaries. Educate kids. We tell the stories that don't make the news. The tiger in the Houston garage. The leopard found in a trailer in El Paso. And yes, the lion no one ever caught. I never gave its name to the public. It belongs to me, to the land, to that morning where my life ended and began at once. We built a space on the ranch for retired cats, monitored and enclosed, where they can feel wind and grass without pain. It's not freedom, but it's not a cage either. Sometimes I walk the fence of that enclosure at dusk. Boone still limps along beside me, older now, slower. I watch the cat stretch, groom, yawn. And sometimes one will lock eyes with me through the mesh. And for a second, I feel the same stillness as that day. Not fear, not memory, just presence. Like the part of me the lion took was still out there, wandering, watching, protecting something I couldn't see. And maybe that's why it let me live. Maybe it didn't spare me. Maybe it chose this. There's a tree out at the edge of the property, an old mesquite half dead from lightning decades ago. I nailed a cross to it. Nothing fancy, just weathered wood and a name no one will read. I go there when the nights are too loud, when the pain comes back, when the old dreams start clawing again. I light a candle, I sit, and I listen. Because out there, the wind carries voices older than time. The land remembers. The lion may be gone, but its lesson is carved deep into the dirt. And into me. I never saw it again. Not truly. There were signs, tracks, glimpses, but no second meeting. I used to hope for one. I imagined looking into its eyes again, unafraid. Now, I think that moment was the second meeting. Every time I step into that space, every time I feel the heat of the sun through the cedar, I'm back there. And I don't need the lion to return, because I carry it. I carry the silence, the teeth, the mercy, and the pain. It walks beside me, unseen, but never absent. People ask me if I'd take it back, if I could undo that morning, or would I? I think of the scars, the long nights, the fear. I think of Boone, blooded and loyal. I think of the kids who visit the sanctuary, eyes wide, listening to a man who survived the wild. And I say no, I wouldn't take it back, because the lion didn't just wound me, it revealed me. It showed me the man I had buried beneath duty and pride, and that man is who I was always meant to be. So if you ever find yourself in the brush, staring into the eyes of something bigger, older, hungrier than you, don't look away, don't run, look inward, because that's where the real predator lives. And if it lets you go, don't waste the breath it gave you. Change something, protect something, become something. That's the deal, that's the cost. And if you do that, then maybe you deserve to live. That day, the lion didn't just tear through my flesh, it tore open the lie I'd built around my life. And when it left me breathing, it gave me more than a second chance. It gave me a reason to matter.